Today's lesson is all about insects. Now, insects are arthropods, just like the crustaceans and the arachnids, the centipedes and the millipedes that we talked about in section 2. The reason that insects get their own section is because they make up the majority of the arthropods in that kingdom. As a matter of fact, insects make up the majority of the animal kingdom on Earth. There are about 200 million insects for every one human that's alive. So it's important to understand them, to break down what qualifies as an insect just a little bit more. The three objectives that go along with this section are to describe the characteristics of insects, to describe the overall impact of insects on humans, and to explain the life stages of insects. So an insect is an arthropod that has three body sections. So we're going to always see a head, a thorax, and an abdomen in an insect. The insects also all have 6 legs. Notice that that is set. It doesn't matter if we're dealing with a bee or an ant or some sort of icky cockroach. All of them will have 6 legs. 1 pair of antennae as well. Remember that there are sense organs located on the antennae that allow the insect to both taste and to touch. Usually insects will have 1 or 2 pairs of wings in addition to the 6 legs and 1 pair of antennae. The thorax, the middle section of the arthropod, contains the wings, if the insect has wings, and the legs. It's where all of those appendages are going to attach. Sense organs will always be located on the insect's head, and internal organs like the digestive system, the heart, the very simplistic lungs that we see in an insect, all of those will be located inside of the insect's abdomen. Insects are typically going to have 2 pairs of eyes. They're going to have large compound eyes, which are great for sensing movement. You can think of a compound eye as being a bit like the computer screens or the security camera screens that you might see in a security room, where a person sits and monitors what's happening in multiple locations at once. The compound eyes are going to generate lots of different images on almost a 360-degree radius that allow the insect to sense movement on any side of its body. That's a huge advantage when one of your main jobs is escaping predators. Most insects also have small, simple eyes that are going to be located more in the center of their head, and those sense light and dark. Pretty simple, but also very important. Insects are going to breathe not through lungs like you and I have, but through a tube system, which connects ultimately to the exoskeleton. That's where the oxygen-rich air is going to get in, and the carbon dioxide-rich waste product is going to get out. Insects begin their life as tiny eggs. Again, doesn't matter if we're dealing with a bee, if we're dealing with a beetle, if we're dealing with a grasshopper, they all start out as tiny eggs. As soon as they hatch, a process called metamorphosis begins. Now, insect species are all going to go through this process of metamorphosis. That process is either going to look one of 2 ways. It will look like complete metamorphosis, which is 4 dramatically different stages, starting with egg, then moving into the larval stage, the pupal stage, and finally the adult stage. Or an insect species might go through gradual metamorphosis, which is when the insect hatches out of the egg and then simply grows in its larval stage, which we call the nymph phase, into an adult. The gradual metamorphosis model mirrors more what you and I go through as humans, growing and developing from a child into an adult. Insects are going to go through one of these 2 phases of metamorphosis. You're not going to see an insect that goes through complete metamorphosis and then incomplete or gradual metamorphosis later. It's one or the other. Again, in complete metamorphosis, the female will lay eggs. Over time, those eggs are going to hatch into larvae, and those larvae are going to begin to grow. When the insect enters its pupal stage, it becomes a pupa, which is a insect that looks somewhat like a larva still, enclosed in a protective covering. Now, those protective coverings go by different names. A butterfly forms inside a chrysalis. We see caterpillars forming moths, forming inside of cocoons. So the name of the protective covering will change, but while the insect is in the pupal stage, it is going to undergo dramatic changes to its anatomy. When it finally emerges, it is an adult, and that adult looks dramatically different from the larva that we saw before. In incomplete or gradual metamorphosis, we see 3 stages instead of 4. The egg is going to hatch not into a larvae now, it's going to hatch into a nymph. The nymph is just an immature form of the adult insect. If you think about humans, children, babies, are going to look similar in a lot of ways to their parents. Are going to have the same eyes, ears, nose, mouth, arms, legs, fingers, toes. All of that stuff is already in existence when a child is born, but the thing that's going to change as they grow is the size of all those features and the ratio to some degree too. A nymph forms sort of like that. As the baby insect, the nymph, is growing, it needs to shed its exoskeleton, its hard outer protective covering that we know all arthropods have, several times. Basically, every time it outgrows its shell, it has to shed it and grow a new one. This process of shedding an exoskeleton as a nymph grows is called molting. Insects in the nymph stage will always look like adults again, but one small change to anatomy, sometimes as a nymph grows, it's going to develop wings. Insects are going to live on all sorts of things. Basically, it's a good rule of thumb to remember if something is living or was once living or was made from something that was living, an insect can probably eat it. Lots of insects feed on plants or plant-like materials like this grasshopper that you see in the picture. Insects can also feed on things that were produced from plants like paper. Book lice eat paper. Some insects live on animal blood. Insects like mosquitoes and fleas would fit in that category. Some live on animal droppings like the dung beetle. Kind of gross. There are even insects that eat decaying animals. We would call these scavengers. The burying beetle would be an example of a scavenger. Insect mouthparts, no matter what they eat, are specially adapted for the highly specific ways that each insect will go about getting food. Insects also have a number of defense mechanisms built into their anatomy that allow them to escape predators. Their first and foremost defense is their exoskeleton. Remember that their exoskeleton is a hard outer shell. You have a skeleton inside your body that gives you structure and support. Insects and other arthropods have it on the outside. Lots of insects have the ability to move quickly. They can fly quickly, or in the case of insects that don't have wings, like perhaps the ant, they can run quickly to escape predators. Some insects are going to have a bad smell, release a bad smell like a stink bug, or just taste really, really bitter and nasty when predators try to eat them. And that's a defense mechanism that can keep them alive for a longer period of time. Some insects go on the defense themselves, or on the offense themselves, They have stingers. Think about bees and wasps and hornets as fitting in that category. Lots and lots of insects have changes in their coloring that will protect them. One of those changes we call camouflage. That's when the protective covering allows an insect to blend into its surroundings. Insects aren't the only animals that take advantage of camouflage. Mimicry is kind of a cool coloring defense mechanism as well. The pictures you see on the screen are examples of mimicry. We see the butterfly or the moth at the top of the screen, when it sits upside down on something brown, looks an awful lot like an owl, which would be a predator to a lot of the animals or organisms that would eat a moth. We also have the walking stick, or the insect at the bottom of the screen, which blends in with a tree. Scientists, as I said before, estimate that there are about 200 million insects for every living human. That means the insect population on planet Earth is downright huge. The majority of the insects that we live with are harmless or beneficial to humans. Think about bees making honey, or silkworm larvae that spin silk, which we use for clothing and all sorts of other decorations. Pollinators are responsible for making sure that pollen is carried from plant to plant. That is super important for us to have access to food and other organisms as well. There are certain insects, however, that are harmful to humans. There are insects that carry diseases like malaria. Mosquitoes carry malaria as they bite different humans. And there are many insects out there as well that damage crops. Because people don't like having their crops damaged, we've come up with a number of strategies to try to eliminate these harmful insects. One of the most common strategies used is applying chemicals to plants. Those chemicals are called pesticides. They're designed to kill the insect on contact, but one of the big problems with these pesticides is that they can't differentiate between insects that are harmful and insects that are actually trying to help, like pollinators. And so pesticides often kill everything. Over time, another drawback to pesticides is the insects that you really want to keep away can develop a resistance. All of a sudden, those insects that couldn't land and eat your crops can. So for this reason, scientists have been trying to think outside the box. They've been developing biological controls. A biological control is the introduction of oftentimes a living organism, bio, remember means life, into an environment in order to target a specific species or a very small select set of species. Introducing predators, for instance, into an environment is a dangerous thing to do, but it can help to curb the growth of a harmful insect species near a crop. Introducing specific diseases that are only harmful to certain species is another form of biological control. Soil can be treated with bacteria, for instance, that's harmful to humans, but can cause diseases to the larvae of some of these insect pests that we don't want to have around. Biological controls overall are thought to be less damaging to the environment because they're only going to kill the one pest or a select set of pests as opposed to killing everything. Now, remember, we don't have class on Friday and we don't have class on Monday. So the work that you see here today is really a little bit on the light side. I want you to please turn in your section 2.3 notes by 2 p.m. today, and then to make sure you make time to take the section 2.3 open note quiz using those notes that you just finished. Now, the open note quiz I'm going to have due on Friday at 2 p.m., even though we don't have class. That's just to give you a little bit of extra time as opposed to having it due at midnight tonight to finish that work and to make sure that it's done well. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a good day.